Hey everyone, this is Talkative Carl back again for another discussion video. And today is a topic that uh, I came up with a couple of days ago. Something that seemed something I want to bring up, and curious to know what you guys' thoughts are. Of course, you can leave a comment below and let me know your point of view. But I wanted to talk about like guilt and responsibility in the Marvel universe because that permeates, or at least aside from like super science or uh, for the most part, uh, or gamma radiation or radiation uh, on some level, guilt and responsibility play not even just in the movies but in the comics more so, that plays a major factor to a lot of Marvel characters, mostly for the heroes, but a fair bit for like villains here and there. But how much does it play, and does it fit with all the characters? More than likely, yeah. Because I just drew up only a short list, but these are like major ones that kind of like stuck out for me, so far as like characters who or let guilt weigh them or drive them into becoming heroes, and by this point still affects them in a great by a great deal. And is, like part of their origin story more often than not. And it's just that I wrote down, I went over like a bunch of videos as far as like how people classify guilt, uh, shame, responsibility, what people do with that, what people do with all that. And I just want to go over this a fair bit and see what you guys think, because it's a very good, it was a very cool way where Stan Lee and Jack Kirby, the way they when they create the Marvel universe, by and large, compared to like DC, the Marvel characters, a lot of them are like kind of based on normal real life in some fashion. Because instead, like in DC, we create a lot of these unique cities like Gotham, Metropolis, Coast City, uh, 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 Themyscira and stuff like that. We actually get like actual like places like in real life, like New York mostly, because the creators are New York based people, right? Which kind of situation. But I just want to go over these characters and just to see how like guilt affected them in such a pivotal way that some in some cases they got over, but it's still kind of like it's still there, but it's not like the way Batman was for such a long time, where it's like oh, like I'm doing this for my parents, but now he's doing it for him. It's not, because it wasn't until like maybe in the past few years when they kind of, ever since like DC Rebirth, not even then, it's just like uh it wasn't until like just minor spoiler alert, the Flashpoint Batman Thomas Wayne version managed to come over into the main DC universe to meet his son, and it caused all kind of like a major thing, like a minor event with Batman. So far as like you know there are different viewpoints. You know, Thomas not wanting this kind of world for his son, and he want to live a life, and each other's point of views. They use each other as a reason to becoming Batman, and it's like it wasn't until after that when and then another minor spoiler for a Batman event, this particular Batman event, uh Alfred dies. I mean, you see him in other comic books here and there, but in the main continuity moving forward in Batman's story, he's dead, and that kind of light a fire to Damian Wayne, who's the son of Batman, who happened to be forced to witness that, and he's on his own little pilgrimage. But now Batman at this point doesn't have even his surrogate father, but he still has a family now that he kind of built over the years, the Bat family. And at this point, he using a different, not Alfred, or even his parents, using like a different motivation to drive him to still become a Batman. Just because you take away, because after the Joker War, not the Joker War, but like the Three Joker storyline, Joker, kind of finagled away, even though it was like a crappy kind of story here and there. But there's little bits and pieces of great material there where, in a way, just another spoiler alert, he finagled a way to get Batman to come face to face with Joe Chill, the man who murdered his parents at a young age. And for all this time, he, even before he got cancer and whatever like that, and he died, he grew to understand the way he did was wrong. He was very apologetic. He written thousands of letters, but never sent them out, trying to figure out a way or how to apologize, or the right way, or just a way to apologize to a kid of robbing him of his parents for so long. And it's like, well, Joker's in a way trying to, because it's the one thing Joker did not have is like becoming his main contributor to be his main villain, but or at least the reason him being Batman, he did not have that. That was Joe Chill. So he, in a way, just kind of neutralized all that by having Batman come to terms with Joe Chill. So now, only person who's now the main focus is Joker, because he wanted to be, he wanted the attention. He wanted to be the focal point. So, in this, I'm gonna go over first like the definition of guilt and responsibility, and then go over each character and go over this little questionnaire, just to see each one how they fit and how they are dealt with each one. So, guilt or guilty. Let's increase that a bit so you guys can see. Guilt, culpable of or responsible for a specified wrongdoing. And to use it in a sentence, the police will soon discover who the guilty party is. Synonyms: culpable, to blame, at fault, in the wrong, blameworthy, responsible. Also meaning justly chargeable with a particular fault or error, conscious of or affected by a feeling of guilt, ashamed, guilt-ridden, conscience-stricken, remorseful, sorry, contrite, repentant, penitent, regretful, rueful, abashed, shameful, sheepish, hangdog, in sackcloth and ashes. Okay, lower this a bit. Responsibility. Excuse me. The state or fact of having a duty to deal with something or having control over someone. The state or fact of being accountable or to blame for something. Or the state or fact of being accountable or to blame for something. Oh, it's the same thing. I don't know why I keep doing that after I went over that. Which I'm gonna go over at least 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 characters. I didn't want to make this too long of a video, but these ones stuck out for me. Reed Richards. Yeah. If you don't know who Reed Richards is, he is the leader of the Fantastic Four. In his origin story, or they origin story, Mr. Fantastic wanted to study cosmic rays in space. He brought his girlfriend slash fiance at the time, because it was a long time before they actually got married, Sue Storm, with her brother Johnny and his best friend Ben Grimm. And some continuity, Victor Von Doom was along with them. But they went onto the space station. Now, he knew the cosmic rays were deadly, just don't know what effect they had on the human body. But he invented shielding that's supposed to protect them from the cosmic rays as they studied the rays outside. But it didn't fully protect them as he initially calculated, causing them to be bombarded with cosmic rays. He get elasticity powers, Johnny gets fire powers, Ben turns into a rock monster with kind of super strength and durability, and Sue Storm be able to make force fields, turn invisible, that kind of thing. Ben light and so forth to make other things invisible if she wants to. And they become the Fantastic Four. But for the longest time, he felt guilty upon, in a sense, ruining, in a way, in his eyes, ruining their lives, especially his best friend Ben, who, unlike the rest of the three, who can still walk about and appear normal in the public, Ben cannot go anywhere, because for the longest time he could not turn back to Ben, so he was stuck like that until like in recent, excuse me, it wasn't until like in the past year or two in recent Fantastic Four comics where they kind of retcon where once a year Ben Grimm kind of, I guess, his powers evolved a bit, where he can revert once a year back into Ben Grimm for one day. So that way he can have a life with Alicia Masters, his longtime girlfriend, now current wife, because they did get married in the comics last year at some point. So, eventually, he gotten past all that because Ben gotten used to. I mean, for the longest time, it's all about him. Like, I look like a monster. You gotta turn me back into Ben Reed. I don't want to look like this and everything like that. I want a normal life and woo woo. But eventually, even though he wanted that, he still kind of wants that. But it's not a hang up anymore. Just like with a Hulk, which I will get to on this list, because he's on there. But it's not like his hang up anymore. He used to be a superhero. He gotten used to the way his body is and moving around and all that other stuff for all these years. But now that he's his powers evolved to a point where he can at least revert back once a year to his normal form. Even though he doesn't have his powers, he's a normal human completely. He doesn't have like full control over that. I'm pretty sure years down the line he'll be retcon where he can just revert back and forth whenever he wants to. But for now, it's just once a year. They timed it so they'll know when once a year it'll happen. But it's just that one time a year. But now Reed and Sue have children. They got because the Fantastic Four is like a family superhero, not unlike the Incredibles, which the Incredibles are based off the Fantastic Four. But they got other family dynamics. It's not all about trying to get them to turn back normal, because they're a famous family. Because back in the day, in order to mitigate or lessen the blow so that they won't be appeared as freaks, Reed decided to have them be like a famous superhero family, even having their headquarters in the middle of, I don't know, it was like Manhattan or something like that, in a Baxter building, previously the Four Freedoms Plaza, to become work with like the government in order to use their super science to better mankind. They're space explorers and stuff like that. So become like famous uh, with like Johnny have like endorsements and all the other stuff. So that way, in a way, because I remember reading in the comics about this and him saying that, this is the best way to lessen the blow or at least keep people from being frightened of them by making them celebrities. And I have this like flow chart here, and it's just a couple of questions for Reed. Like, does the guilt fit the facts? To him, the guilt does fit the facts. He was the one that convinced them to come on board. He made the calculations. He was just happened to be wrong, which happens very rarely. It's not like Doom where he cannot admit any kind of fault or wrongdoing. Excuse me for a second. Will acting on him be effective? If yes, problem solve, which he did. He found a way to make them celebrities so that way they will be feared and ostracized. And Ben is considered to be one of the greatest superheroes. People looked upon the thing as not as a monster, maybe a few outliers, but for the most part, they are looked upon as one of the greatest superheroes. And of course, there's shame. Shame is a factor in the guilt. Does the shame fit the facts? I believe Reed would think so. Like I said, he takes the responsibility of the fault that he played in here. And once again, problem solved. Then we got the biggest one, the king of guilt and responsibility, Spider-Man. And of course, on his guilt trip for the longest time, it's still there, but it's not as big as it used to be. I think it was only at least a few years at the most by this point where Peter Parker is not hung up over the guilt of his part in his Uncle Ben's death. He's definitely moved on. He's a notable superhero. He's been with the Avengers, Fantastic Four, saved the world countless of times with them. Fought like interdimensional vampires who's trying to kill off different versions of Spider-Man. He's a mentor to Miles Morales. So he's currently with MJ. Hopefully soon get married with this woman. So that way they can start telling more stories, different stories with him, rather than being hung up on this one moment that was definitely a crucial moment in his life that definitely was the foundation of him becoming Spider-Man. And of course, you know the story that after he got his powers, he wanted to try out at wrestling, just to make money and become famous, but he hid his identity. But after the show, somebody robbed the arena. The arena's manager specifically. He could have stopped him, chose not to. The burglar went out, killed his uncle, and he stopped him, but the burglar eventually died. But he felt responsible because he did not choose to use his ability to step in when he had the chance. So he felt for the longest time culpable to the death of his beloved uncle, the man who was a surrogate father to him for the longest time. Excuse me. So a question to him again: does the guilt fit the facts? He would think so. He did not choose to step in, even though he would not have known. Unlike Reed, who did the calculations and expected the shields to work, it just didn't pan out that way. Calculations can be wrong here and there. But there's no way of, he wouldn't feel that way, but outside looking in, and people know the full story, there's people would tell him, there's no way you would have known that same burglar will go out and kill your uncle. The odds of that was, well, I'm pretty sure at that time would have been astronomical. You could have killed somebody else's uncle and you wouldn't have thought two things about it, except like that person had to be stopped and you stopped him and then you would have put him in jail and moved on with your life. But this resonated with Spider-Man for such a long time. And yeah, I mean, can you imagine like if he felt like, acting on it be effective? Like that's why he became Spider-Man. He used a mantra that I definitely applied in some cases to my life, and a lot of people who are Spider-Man fans would know this. With great power comes great responsibility, and if you don't even have to be a superhero, but if you got any monicum of power, whether it's being a celebrity or the Pope or a president or a governor, mayor, whatever that, if you have a certain power or influence, it's your duty to use that wisely for the betterment of others, because they look upon you in inspiration, or hang on your every word and follow you into or you inadvertently lead them into whatever path that you set, inadvertently or not. It's just that Spider-Man was a big influence on my life. He's one of my favorite heroes of all time, and like he's the foundation of my morality. And like that's why like I try to, I'm not perfect, obviously nobody's perfect, but it's just that I try my best like with this like platform or in like voice acting, and depending on like what I do with that, I try to acknowledge the fact that like I'm doing it for others to make them happy, have fun and stuff like that. And I want to take that seriously, because that would make it that I have some monicum of influence, and I want to use that responsibly, so I don't be telling people to do wild crap that ideally is wrong. And of course, and there's shame. Does the shame fit the facts? He did have shame for a long time, and so much so he could not tell his own aunt for the longest time the part he played in her husband's death. Even though she did eventually forgive him after she accidentally found out he was Spider-Man, he came clean eventually. But for the longest time, he couldn't even tell her he was Spider-Man without also telling her what led him to be Spider-Man and so forth, without worrying about her killing over and like having a heart attack or something like that, because she always constantly worries about her nephew, like is he in danger, like or make sure he's eating well, blah blah blah, and just that he already have enough shame. He doesn't want to add on to it by having her worry every time he's out saving the world, because he still feels responsible of doing that. He doesn't want to be stunted or worrying about what might happen to her, and he's trying to pretty much like separate those two lives. Even though being a superhero, those two things, having two lives is very difficult. So yeah, that's definitely a biggie. Can you imagine if he felt like opposite? Like, if acting on this would be effective. If no, then do the opposite reaction. Like let's say like when people try to make you feel guilty on being like a homosexual, but you don't feel shame of that, then the opposite would be, instead of like doing something about it, like trying to change, you would stay true to who you are and keep doing it. You do the opposite of what that would be. Yeah, you just stay true to who you are. Spider-Man couldn't stay true to what he was. He felt bad on it, and he tried to change his ways, at least slightly alter his path a bit, instead of maintaining his like, oh, I just want to make money and be famous off my powers. He turned. You want to use his powers, but use it for the betterment of people instead of just being a famous celebrity. Then you got Iron Man, Tony Stark, and his hangout for the longest time, even still in the comics, is his weapons being used to hurt people. And I mean, for the longest time, he's been using it for the U.S. government to protect people, but he didn't realize like how many people can just, that it doesn't work specifically for the government, get their hands on his weapons and using it to make different suits or unique weapons to terrorize people around the world. And after the whole situation with like well, in the movies, Afghanistan, the bomb going off, shrapnel going in his chest, and him making Iron Man suits to and that's what you get from the first Iron Man movie. That he decided not to make any more weapons. He goes out, destroys every weapon cache out there, no matter who has it. So that way he's the sole proprietor wherever it comes through Tony Stark. And he using like his knowledge to make not weapons but other engineering tools, similar to what like Reed Richards does as far as like the betterment of the people, to make people's lives easier and better, like making smartphones or like machines that help with agriculture and stuff like that kind of stuff. And like people always assume, because people's always worry that he will, if he did not go on that path, he would have been in danger of becoming similar to Obadiah Stane, the Ironmonger. He would have been an Ironmonger, just getting rich off the blood that his weapon spilt. It's similar to like in the movies with Wanda and Pietro, when they see like a Stark missile destroy a lot of their neighborhoods, especially inadvertently killing their parents. It was Stark's weapons. And it's like even though he specifically did not pull the trigger and he did not know about this, he created it. The buck stops at him. So that's why he felt guilty. Like that weighed on him. Like he's seeing all this terrorists using his weapons to terrorize people, and it's like he couldn't have that anymore. Does the guilt fit the facts? I mean, yeah, in a way, he would think so. Will acting on it be effective? Yeah, he took action. He used the only technical weapon he has will be his Iron Man suits, but only he has, and Rhodey besides him. And because he's only, only the two people he trusts wearing Iron Man suits. I mean, and then there's Riri Williams later on in the future. But those are only three that are meant to have Iron Man suits that he completely trusts to utilize to help people. And then there's a rescue armor for Pepper Potts. But yeah, those are only ones. And then, of course, he was known to be a drinker. He was in the comics, he's still an alcoholic. Well, not alcoholic. He doesn't drink anymore, but he's gone to AA meetings and all that other stuff. So currently, in the main continuity, Tony Stark does not drink anymore. He hasn't for a very long time. I mean, the last time he had any drop of alcohol at all was during the event of Fear Itself in the Marvel comics, after he stopped this massive, Norse god who was Thor's uncle, from taking over the different realms. After he had his victory moment, after the whole thing was over, he took his drink in his first alcoholic drink that he had in a mighty long time. And I think like we wouldn't behoove him to just let him have that one. It was like a hard fought battle in that event. Act on it will be effective. He took action, took on a suit, and went out there, neutralized any weapon that he created, that anybody, even the U.S. government, that anybody has. he neutralized. No more weapons. Period. He's not in a weapon making business anymore. Does the shame fit the facts? Uh, yeah, yeah. I mean, he felt shame of it. He like when he was in captivity, he witnessed people dying, and even on the news, and he's in a movie, you see him like watching people in dire straits being attacked by the very weapons he built to supposed to protect them. So shame fell hard on him. So speaking of Scarlet Witch, well, in the comics, she definitely has some fair bit of guilt for what happened after the events of House of M and M Day, when she uttered the words "no more mutants." After she kept messing with reality, just like in the TV show, where in the MCU, Wanda went through a lot of tragedy, losing like her first parents, then her brother, then her love interest Vision twice, and well, technically 3 times in the show, but twice in the movies, where like she had to kill him herself just to keep Thanos from getting the Mind Stone. Then Thanos brought him back by reversing time and stealing the Mind Stone, killing him again. That she had to witness, and then of course after the events of, spoiler alert, WandaVision, she had to undo the reality she built, and therefore along with Vision and her kids, that's another heartache. And then after she realized what she was doing with the residents of Westview, despite Monica Rambeau saying like if we explain to them what was occurring on, they will understand, and want to pretty much like, there's no amount of explaining that I can do that would fix what I've done to them. They will still hate me. And that it could be a precursor to what we'll have in the mutants in the MCU, that, this particular mutant kept us under her control for weeks. And one of them, the mother of that 70s show, was shouting like, "When you dream, we have your nightmares." And it's like they're begging to be let go and stuff like that. And it's like, grief plays a major role in Wanda in particular. Well, a lot of them, but she, definitely probably got the worst of it, at least by some standards. It's like, she lost too much, and then her grief, without the necessary counseling that she desperately needed it, she went, I want to say berserk, but just like grief stricken, and her powers just reacted and just out of control, and just put everybody into this TV show land visage, just so she could have her moment to have like the normal life that she always wanted with Vision, and to raise a family and all the other stuff without the whole nonsense of the superhero world. So yeah, does the guilt fit the facts? I mean, yes and no, in my opinion. In the end, she feels guilty, but in the moment, she did not. She just wanted a life, and like she could get any way she could have. And so like, if she felt the opposite, then she would have just kept on going with the whole facade. It's like, she mentioned to like Monica, like episode 6, it's like, or 7. No, it was like only 6 episodes, like 5 or 6. She mentions to Monica, is like, they're not hurting. And it's like, like somebody asked about like, what about their, the children here? It's like, oh, they're resting. It's like, they're asleep, they're safe. Like, don't worry about it. She was just so concerned with her own happiness, because she was deprived of it so long, for just having like a nice normal family, and just just want to be left alone. So she just kept on going for at least a long time, until she had to come to terms of what she's done and what she's doing. In the end, she felt shame, and that shame was eating at her halfway through the season, But yeah, but as far as in the comics are concerned, she felt guilty over what she done with mutants. In the current continuity, they live on Krakoa. Then pretty soon they make a second home base on Mars. They terraform Mars in the comics. Spoiler alert: if you haven't read Way of X comics, where they made like a second home on Mars called Araco or Akoa or something like that. Uh, uh, where for the longest time in this mutant society, in away from the humans by and large, and only they can pass through back and forth between there and their home. Mutants was told the story of what they considered the boogeyman, Wanda, because of what she did with taking away mutants, at least 90% of the mutants in the world's powers. So she's considered to be like the boogeyman, which I don't know how long that will last, because she in the comics is considered to be her and Quicksilver to be Magneto's children. That's it. It was iffy, uh, like a decade or so ago. Well, even like scratch that. Even during the events of Avengers: Age of Ultron, it was still iffy on they couldn't just keep the continuity as far as like making Wanda and Pietro Magneto's children. Now it's like a hard, like, yes, they are his children, flat out. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. And that's for the longest time for a lot of comic book fans. We just, resign ourselves to, yeah, they obviously his children. That's what it makes sense to be for a lot of people, because Fox for a long time had the X-Men. They could not use X-Men, but they did not have the rights to Quicksilver or Scarlet Witch. So they considered them in the movies miracles, not mutants like we know them to be. But now that Fox gave the rights of Fantastic Four and the X-Men to Disney, now everybody's back. Even in the comics, they couldn't even utilize them to share in the same space in the comics with the Avengers or what have you, because of that rights deal. Now everybody's playing underneath the same roof. Next, Punisher. In fact, I think I got. Let me check something. Yeah, I forgot to put the Hulk on here. So let me go over Hulk. Obviously, the Hulk, Bruce Banner. He for the longest time until recent years, well, in the comics, in the movies, recent years, but in the comics, he still, not dealt with like in the movies where he's like found a balance with himself and the Hulk, but he felt guilty as far as like the Hulk's personality. Just he felt like he was the danger to a lot of people whenever he got angry and had no control of what that Hulk's action was. Despite the Hulk, by and large, being a hero, saving the world, or at least helping stop certain bad guys from destroying the world or taking over. But like in the first Hulk movie, it's like you can't control the Hulk, but maybe you could aim it. So for the longest time, like that's what Bruce, when he sees something happening, and he couldn't do anything about it as Bruce Banner, but he just pretty much just like turn and just aim, pretty much like putting himself in a position where the Hulk will have to get himself involved to help stop bad guys from doing certain things that he felt like the Hulk could easily handle. But when he turned the Hulk, he felt like the Hulk did more harm than good. Does the guilt filter facts? In Bruce Banner's eyes, he felt guilty. Hulk's eyes, he did not, because Hulk just want to be left alone for the large part. But bad guys was more so went at him to try to like either prove their strengths or trying to get him out of their way to no avail, or the military kept coming after him even though he won't be left alone. He had to intervene despite Bruce's worry of him hurting somebody. Uh, so uh, Bruce would have problem solved the way he would have problem solved the matter was trying for the longest time trying to find the cure to the Hulk, which to no avail. And in the comics, he eventually just stopped that altogether, trying to work with the Hulk in some fashion. But years prior, he would have tried to done well, if he would have done the opposite, he would have just kept on being a Hulk and just allow, which probably would have led to the Maestro in the alternate universe where the Hulk just pretty much took over the world and become like evil dictator. And definitely, Bruce has shame for the Hulk's actions. Now, the Punisher, he felt guilty in some modicum of fashion of what happened to his wife and children, because in the comics he just happened upon, well, even in the TV show, it just happened upon, and in the movies, he just happened upon, gangsters, doing like their activity. They didn't want any witnesses. Shot at the Castle family. Castle's the only one that lived. So he kind of felt like maybe survivor's guilt more than anything. But he was already kind of messed up in a way, according to the TV show. Like if you go on by the TV show MCU standards, he was messed up, kind of like the war changed him in some fashion long before he went back home and started his crusade. Because I don't know if it was Daredevil in the comics, but somebody mentions like the Punisher just wanted an excuse. Frank just wanted an excuse to really just tear shit up, because somebody made a comment about like Castle's family was holding him back in a way from like doing what he really wanted to do. Because he, by and large, Frank Castle probably would have been one of those, veterans turn crazy kind of stories where it's like, he never really came back home. He, like shell shock or whatever the case might be. So, I don't think it's hard to say like, does the guilt fit the facts for the Punisher? He would probably say no, because he would have just gone out. He was just gone out to on a nice little day at a park with his family, and it was just bad luck or bad timing where it is having upon a gang family occurring, or a gang family doing like activities that they should not have been witnessing, and they just unfortunately met their end. And so Frank decided to do something about it and just raise a war on crime altogether. And just that's why he doesn't have that much rose galleries, because he by and large kills a lot of them. He only has maybe like a few, like the Russian and Jigsaw, as far as like his rose gallery. They actually do come back here and there, and he shares a couple of Daredevil and Spider-Man villains like Bullseye and Kingpin. I don't think he feels any shame for what he's doing to the mobsters. For all intents and purposes, they had it coming. He doesn't think two ways about it. It's extremely rare where Castle allowed a bad guy to be let go. I know there's a couple of rare cases that I've seen here and there, but by and large, he just outright kills them. So as far as guilt, maybe guilt that he didn't maybe spend more time with his family, or just chose a bad activity. It made me feel some kind of guilt, but maybe like 10% of him feels guilty. But by and large, he put it all on those, criminals and anyone like them that took his family. And Daredevil, Catholic guilt. That plays a major role with Daredevil stories a lot. I know in recent comics, Daredevil. Oh, they're not in comics, but well, in the comics, but like I remember in like the season 2 trailer of Daredevil, he it was like a line where he's talking to his priest. It's like uh, Father, why do I still feel guilty? Because you know your job's not done yet, son. So it's like, yeah, Daredevil, like, he's like, the I won't say hypocrisy, but it's kind of like a martyr. Like he's a martyr. He's trying to like become a martyr in a way, as far as like things he does. He's got to handle it all on his own. He doesn't want to ask for. He barely want to ask for any kind of help from anybody. He always contradicts himself as far as like his beliefs concerned. He had sex with a lot of women. Not a lot, but like it's not like Tony Stark level of stuff. But in recent comics, he's part of an affair with, or he was part of an affair with one of a crime member's wife, who he didn't think was part of that family, but she was running like a bookstore that he frequents. Then he ended up sleeping with her, and still, even after finding out, he still slept with her a couple of times. So it's like, and he of course felt guilty, but he kept doing it for a little bit. But he also felt guilty, but he's currently in prison, not as Matt Murdock, but just as Daredevil, and he was allowed to keep on his mask and serve his sentence as Daredevil. And he's there because he felt guilty. The fact that he wasn't ready to be out on the field despite his injuries. He wasn't 100%. He was like maybe 80% ready to be out there, but he just wanted to get out there and help Hell's Kitchen, because he wanted so badly to make sure that none of the criminals forget Daredevil's still looking out. But because of his rushness, he was a routine slight bank robbery, not like a major bank robbery, but someone's trying to rob a store. He was trying to stop these criminals, and he slipped up a bit here and there. And then in the act of trying to stop one, he knocked over another dude. He fell, hit his head, and busted his head open. He was dead before he got to the hospital. So, yeah, Daredevil's, feel a lot of guilt for a lot of things, but he's like to take on a lot of guilt that shouldn't be on him. I don't know. I'm Christian, not Catholic, but they're kind of like cousins in a way. But it's just that if anybody's Catholic out there, I'm curious to know like your thoughts on like, how Catholicism play a major role as far as like people doing a certain strict line of, because like Catholicism is like, very strict on certain belief systems. But how that plays with Daredevil as far as like, does the guilt fit the facts to him? Matt would feel like, just like how Spider-Man want to feel responsible for everything that he might have some, cause like if a villain that he normally fights somehow does damage in like Texas somewhere, and he finds out, then he'll put that on himself like, oh my god, I should have made sure he was in prison, and I don't know why I didn't check him on this guy. Now he killed somebody in Texas, and like, I don't know what I'm doing about myself, and he feels sad for a couple of issues. And it's like dude, there's no way in hell you would have known that this particular villain that, yes, you would normally have fought, when took a ticket all the way out to Texas to rob this bank and somehow end up hurting a security guard or something like that. There's no way you could have known. You don't need to feel responsible for every little thing just because you have some connection to it. And Daredevil is kind of the same way. He would have definitely feel like every guilt he feels is fitting the facts, because every little thing he does, he doesn't cut himself any kind of slack. Will acting on it be effective? He will say yes. Does the shame feel effect? He will say yes. You know, but he would like try to act on it to make sure he tries to fix it physically instead of like trying to fix it eternally. Because definitely, that's why he goes to church a lot. He doesn't go to a psychologist like he probably should be doing, but he definitely finds solace in going to church and speak to his priest. And of course, last but not least, Loki. And of course, in recent comics, in the past few years, or a couple of years, 2-3 years, Loki kind of evolved into like character arc wise, he evolved into more so like an anti-hero rather than a full out villain like he used to be for the longest time. And in recent MCU stuff, that was the case, especially in the Loki show that we just finished up, and you can watch my spoiler review of that episode 6 on my channel. But as far as like character arc wise in the movies, yes, he as far as like from the first Thor movie up until Infinity War, he had like an extensive character arc, and up until like Ragnarok, he had some character growth where he realized, despite everything, he still loved his brother, and he has love for Asgard in his own self-indulgent way. And in the Loki series, they kind of like condensed that into a 6-episode arc where he comes to the realization that, from what he learned through his arc and the main movie timeline wise, he came to that realization by the end of the series that, he still think highly of himself, obviously, but he, doesn't enjoy hurting people in lieu of putting himself above others. He thinks of someone other than himself, finally. I'm curious to know his arc moving forward into season 2 of Loki. But in the comics, yeah, he by and large is kind of like an anti-hero. He's taken over Jotunheim. He's still part frost giant. But in the comics, he's taken over Jotunheim in that realm because Thor is now king of Asgard. So he rules over that realm, and they have a camaraderie. He still don't trust Loki, here and there. But like Loki considers himself in the comics god of stories instead of the god of lies or mischief. He still placates to that, but he doesn't want to be considered that because that was his villainous past. Even here and there, he had his few heroic moments over the years. But right now, currently in comics, he is, by and large, an anti-hero. Not a full-blown hero, but it's like he doesn't go out there and try to do damage anymore. He's not like a Avengers threat anymore. So, he led to this point because he did feel guilty. Like you see the first episode of the Loki series, he looked upon it, his past, present, and future through the TVA's little window, and he sees that, he comes to the realization, like, he's telling Owen Wilson, I don't enjoy hurting people. It's all an illusion. I need to make myself look big, just so that, in a way, kind of feel big if he looks big, and just so he can gain respect because he feel like he's being denied. He felt denied in some cases where he's been lied to as a kid by his father just to quote unquote protect him. He doesn't want to look upon being different by other Asgardians, but that was more of a detriment than a benefit to Loki because, parents lie to their kids here and there, but it's just the amount of lies that's just the issue. Especially if you're dealing with an orphan child and you bring them to the family, you want to let them know as soon as they're like, at least still at a young age, don't wait until they're teenagers, but explain to them early on at the current level of their grade where they can understand that I want to let you know right now, you are our child. We love you like one of our own, no matter what. You are adopted, but we are your parents. We consider you as our child no matter what. We love you no matter what. You are loved, and it's nothing going to change that. Uh, if he felt that or gotten that from Frigga and Frigga or Freya and Odin from the very beginning as a little kid, we could have avoided all that crap in the first Avengers movie. But then again, we probably wouldn't get the MCU. But that's but you know, Loki in that moment did feel shame and guilt all at once. All that was very condensed into one moment. But as far as main movie timeline wise, he definitely started to feel some of that halfway through Ragnarok. But it wasn't until Infinity War he comes to the terms, up until the point of his death, comes to terms with the fact that he is my brother. And even if, I didn't notice in the moment that I watched the first the Infinity War movie in the theaters for the first time, but he doesn't classify himself as Loki Laufey's son. He is, by that point in time, he is Loki Odin's son. He considered himself as an Asgardian through and through. So he had that arc. And as far as like the guilt and shame for all his past transgressions, he comes to terms with it, and he doesn't think of himself lesser than, but he's still I won't say flamboyant, but he's still like, self-aggrandizing in his own way, but still he maintains that, but he's not a prick about it. But yeah, that is my thoughts on the subject matter, like as far as like guilt in the Marvel universe. Like, I mean, I'm pretty sure there's definitely more, but this is just like a condensed version. I didn't want to put like every Marvel character, but of course you get like Jean Grey with the Phoenix. You get Ghost Rider. Every one of those Ghost Rider characters is a lot of people who have their fair share of guilt, and what they do with that matters a lot. And because of that, reading stories like that, resonates so well with people reading it, because the fact that you can relate in some matter to that, because we all feel guilty. It's just what you do with that is what matters a lot. And even if like there's some guilt that you should not feel guilty about, you should not have to change yourself just because other people might think of you. I use the homosexual analogy as an example of the fact, like, if others try to make you feel guilty about who you are as a person, you do not need to change that. There's nothing wrong with that, because that's not hurting nobody. Guilt is usually something as far as like something that you do that might hurt others physically or mentally or emotionally, by some cases. It just depends on case by case basis, but by and large it's those things. Like you being gay does not hurt nobody. There's no way you can hurt anybody just being yourself. That's just for example. But what do you guys think of, like, as far as like a character that you might think that, as far as like has like a horrible guilt trip, and like what they could do about it, or what they're currently doing about it to mitigate that? Leave your thoughts below. I'm curious to know what you guys think of what I was carrying on about. Leave a like, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff to Talkative Carl on YouTube, Twitch, and Twitter. I'll see you guys next time for more topics like this. If you have an idea for a topic that you want me to tackle, leave a comment below. I'll look through it